Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Sean Andrews. Welcome to the Critical Mass Radio Show and podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So I'm very pleased to have a new guest on the show, Jennifer Allure. Jennifer is president of Experian Partner Solutions. She has a history of success as a leader in corporations and is a strong advocate for women at work, helping them grow, learn, and thrive. Jennifer is here today to tell us more about her career journey, share her keys to success, and offer advice for women in business today, which of course is the focus of this podcast, is on women in business. So with that, Jennifer, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll start right off. And for the listeners, tell us a little bit about your professional path and what led you to where you are today.
Okay. Well, that's a long and winding path. So let's see. I got started as a newspaper reporter. So I did that for about 5 years and really enjoyed that. Got it out of my system. Met my husband, who was a sports reporter, and we decided, okay, we need to get serious about what life is going to look like here. So, and it was around the time that a lot of newspapers were closing. So I found my way into a marketing communications role at a startup in 2000. So this is right around the time that the dot-com crash has started. And I was fortunate enough to work for a founder who had what it took to really get us through and into the growth phase. And that included everything from being totally focused on the metrics to personally approving every office supply. So, you know, we were not wasteful and we were really focused on the business, and it ended up being a phenomenal experience. So it was freecreditreport.com was the company. You probably know our commercials.
I think I've used them a couple times.
Yes. And so it was really fun to be part of the growth of that organization. We were purchased by Experian, and that's how I started my kind of grown-up career path, let's put it that way. I had an opportunity to go back and work on my MBA at UC Irvine, which you know very well, and that was a real formative experience for me. So I was doing that while working full-time and had a variety of roles. So I had an opportunity to move from marketing into compliance and risk management. We did about $1 billion of acquisitions in a very short period of time. So I had an opportunity to work with the teams that Lower My Bills, Classes USA, Price Grabber, brands that had built fantastic businesses. And then I really wanted to kind of try out my strategy skills and my operating skills. So I went back into the freecreditreport.com business and did a year in a strategy role, and we decided we needed to diversify the business. And so I launched Protect My ID. It was a brand new identity protection product, and I got to do everything from the market segmentation through the launch. And that was where I fell in love with the general management role and realized that was what I wanted to do. So then I had an opportunity to move to a totally different industry and have a learning opportunity with a company called auction.com. And Auction was a distressed real estate platform that wanted to disrupt the way that you and I buy and sell a home. And so I went from an online national advertiser with a $20-ish a month product to something that was very terrestrial. Every home is different, and we were figuring out a way to sell those online via auction with an agent over the phone. And it was a wonderful experience, great team there, lots of challenges. And I had a chance to do that on both the residential side and the commercial real estate side of the business. And then I was recruited back to Experian to help turn around the business that had been so good to me. And so I rejoined in the, it's been about 4.5 years now, and had an opportunity to help the business really kind of set a new trajectory, specifically on what we call the partner solution side. So what we do is we offer credit education and identity protection products to consumers, but we do that through partnerships with clients in a variety of verticals. So financial institutions, insurance, retail, and that was really an area that had been disrupted through some regulation. And we've spent the last 4 years really helping our clients grow their businesses and better engage and retain their customers.
Okay, great. That's a great overview, great synopsis. and it sounds like, a lot of us think that just the credit bureaus is just credit, but it's much more than that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me more about your firm, and what would you say makes it unique compared to other firms in the minds of your clients?
Yep. Well, there's a couple of things that we do differently, and we acquired a company called CSID a couple of years ago, and they really helped us apply a SaaS model, or software as a service model, to our industry, which means we can get clients up in less than 60 days, offering our products and services and essentially great value to their end customers. And that's lightning fast. So it used to take us months, and it takes other providers quite a bit of time. So that's one area. The other area is, even if you think back to the freecreditreport.com days, Experian knows consumer marketing. And so we're able to take those consumer insights and marketing capabilities and assist our clients with how to effectively communicate and market to their customers. So those are really the two ways that we differentiate ourselves in the market today.
Okay, interesting. And you work with, is it all commercial, or is it individuals as well? Or?
Well, that's interesting. I have two customers, and I think, that was an aha for our business and many businesses out there who are B2B to C. You end up having a consumer that you're servicing, but you also have a client that you're working with and through, because essentially we white label and co-brand our products. So we're oftentimes either our brand is next to their brand, or we're acting as if we are that client. So we've really got two customers. We have the end consumer and the client. So it makes it really fun because I get to go down to our call center in Arkansas and Texas and hear the customer calls, and we're really passionate about helping people make sure that they're educated about their credit and their finances, and then they're also protected against identity theft. And so to hear those calls is really meaningful, and it's purpose-driven work. And then we're also helping our clients build their businesses and create better relationships with their end customers. So it's multiple wins across the board.
And it sounds like you're also servicing both.
Yes.
Individuals as well as organizations.
Businesses.
Businesses. You got
Yes.
it. Got it. So fantastic. So what is it you do specifically in your role? I know you've touched on it a little bit. Is there anything you want to add to that as far as your particular role, or maybe how it's evolved over time and
Sure.
to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think, in all of the general management type roles or operating executive roles that I've had, the fundamental piece is setting the vision and the strategy so that the organization knows here's where we're headed over the next. It used to be 5 years. Now it's more like 2 to 3. It's really hard to see beyond that because things are changing so fast. And then it's backing up to say, well, what are the strategic bets that we're going to make in the business? So that's the fun part. I love that part. It gets me excited. And that's something that I think, it used to be that people would do their annual planning process and then they would put that binder on the shelf and drag it out the following year. What I found is we're constantly looking at that vision and deciding based on what's going on in the market if that still works for us. So every 6 months or so, we're evaluating that. Yeah. I also spend a lot of time on culture. So I'm a firm believer that businesses are really just a collection of individuals, people, humans, and how we get work done is a really important part of a business's success. And the leadership team really owns that culture. A lot of times companies think about culture as the human resources team's problem. But we believe it's actually, for us, the secret to our success. So being really intentional about culture is another key part of my role. And then you get all of the operational items, putting out fires, making sure that we're, have enough resources, meeting with clients, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. No day is ever the same, which is what I love about my job.
Okay, great. So I'll ask you more of an introspective question now. So you've done a lot of things. You were with Experian. You went and picked up some other skills in other industries. You came back again. So you've proven you have a successful track record, right? You've proven yourself as a leader, and the fact that you're president now of a division at Experian. So what do you attribute your success to as a leader in your company? What's made you have this, be able to evolve and have the sustainability that you've had that's
right? Yeah,
led you to.
Well, I think success is subjective. So how about if I kind of, I'll say, let me talk a little bit about the things I like to focus on, and those seem to be serving me well. How about that? So I think the first thing is customer insights. So, anytime we should probably say hello to everybody out there on the webcam. So one of the things that I think is really important is getting out and talking to the clients and the customers. So like I said, I'm often out in our call center, listening to the actual consumer calls and getting feedback from our customer care representatives who are talking with people every day. And there's so much opportunity for us to improve and to really understand. We think, you know your business when you're in it every day. Right. And to talk to a customer or a client about that business, you get a lot of ahas. I think additionally, I like to be out with our clients, and I ask this question, and this one I learned a few years ago, and it serves me really well, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we doing? Because a lot of times I'll be out with clients and they want to say nice things. They like me as an individual. They like our team as individuals. But the rubber meets the road when I ask that question, because I'll have had great conversations and then they'll give us a 6. And I'm genuinely curious to say, wow, tell me more about that. So, I think a key is not being defensive, of course, when you get that feedback. But really digging in and listening to what can we do better. And I think that's really critical. Peter Drucker always, or the most common quote I hear around Peter Drucker is, the purpose of a business is to create a customer, which to me means you're not focused on the revenue and the profit, because that'll dry up if you don't have customers. You really need to focus on the customer need. And so by making sure that you're in front of your clients and you're talking to them about what you need to do to make sure they stay with you and then keep that revenue coming in, that's really the essential piece.
Yeah. And so this 1 to 10 scale question gives you a lot of ahas.
Yes.
So how often do you go out and touch the customers, would you say? I mean, how often do you get a chance to do that?
Frequently, actually. Yeah, we do. We have a cadence where our account team is out on a quarterly basis with most of our clients. So I usually get an invite once per year, let's say, but we have a lot of clients. So I'm trying to get out regularly and as often as possible to participate in those, or, go to a dinner or a coffee or something like that. And, new clients, old clients, big clients, small clients, you get all kinds of great information.
Yeah. So since you're hearing it from the field, right? You're hearing it directly. So where do you go? Share with our audience where you would go to obtain, kind of to keep fresh on your industry, your skills. Where do you go to obtain insights, perspectives, information to address some of the challenges that come up?
So obviously the customer insights is a big one. So staying in front of the clients and asking the right open-ended questions. What are they seeing in the industry? What are they hearing from our competitors? And actually, I've learned over time to get to know my competitors. Those are, when you're at different trade shows or events, it's actually great to sit down and have a drink with them and talk about what's going on in the industry. So that's another source of information. I also do a lot of reading. So different industry trends, that type of thing. I like to have a bunch of email newsletters that come in, or listen to different podcasts. And then just generally kind of widening the aperture a bit and looking at what's going on in technology, what's going on in the world of consumers, trying to try new apps and things like that myself, to experience that firsthand and see how my experience changes when I use the technology. The other thing we were talking about before was a coach. So, to what extent can a coach help someone, or a consultant? I think consultants are great because they see multiple businesses across multiple segments. And when they're working with you, they can give you insights across, an entire market, which is really valuable. I like a coach because a coach can come in and they don't necessarily need to know much about your business. They're just pushing you to think differently about the information that you're taking in. Am I sort of discarding that because I don't agree with it? Let's talk about that. How am I, and what is my operating cadence personally to make sure that I am taking in new information and I'm not choosing to delete those email newsletters because they're cluttering up my inbox? So I really love a coach because I think many of us know what we need to be doing. It's having that accountability partner to really push us and say, are you making the most out of how you're spending your time?
Yeah. And I love the verbiage you just used, Operation Cadence. I'd never thought of it that way, but it's how often you do something, right? It's how often you've operationalized something. So in this case, how do you keep up on your continual learning and your development and keep your skills fresh?
Yep.
And so it sounds like you've established a type of cadence that works for you professionally.
And that's intentional. So we, this year, actually, we did it last year for the first time. This year, we just sat down and did not an annual planning process, but an actual operating rhythm process for our business. And we said, okay, what are the key things that happen in a year? What is our budget cycle, for example? When do we do earnings releases? When are we doing employee performance reviews? And we mapped that all out on a 12-month calendar. And then we said, all right, now that we have those, how do we want to communicate as a leadership team? How do we want to communicate with our group? And what is the right time to be sharing information so that things look a little more coordinated? And then when do we want to do our strategic planning as part of that as we head into, kind of the overall global strategic planning process? So it's been that operating rhythm or cadence. It doesn't take long, and it makes a huge impact in my personal life and just sort of the business's cadence.
Yeah. Well, and I think for any professional, any individual, having cadence is about consistency, right? And if you don't have a certain cadence that you've established, it's hard to get that consistency. And for a lot of us, consistency is a big problem.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So
there's a million things competing for our attention.
Yeah,
so it's becoming even more challenging.
So this question I love, and I think you're a great one to ask it too, just given your journey and where you've been. So what advice would you offer women who are in business today, Jennifer?
How long do we have? How long do we have left here? Okay. I have a lot because this is paying it forward, because I have had an opportunity to be blessed with so many mentors in my life who pass on. Sometimes I have long-term relationships with them and it's regular. Sometimes it's just in the moment mentoring. And I'm a big believer in that. And so maybe I'll make that my first piece of advice, which is whenever you're in front of someone, asking the question to say, what are your observations or what feedback would you give me? And just being really open to that answer. Because everyone has an interesting perspective or a tidbit that they might share. And they're not going to share it with you most often unless you open that door. And some of the most insightful things I've learned have been in those kind of 1-minute mentoring conversations that we don't have an ongoing relationship over. Yeah. I'd say that probably the most foundational advice that I would pass on that I got was managing my state of mind. So, again, we talk about, hey, there's a million things competing for your attention. Many women have lots of things that they're trying to do outside of their life, either family obligations, community obligations. You've got your work life, you're building a business or growing a business, and we tend to forget about our state of mind. So I, many years ago, actually started a daily meditation practice. And you can call it, many people prefer to pray, they want to journal, they just like quiet reflection time, whatever works. It's a time for me in the morning before I jump out of bed and get started, which is what I used to do, just hit the ground running with my to-do list already in my head. It's a time for me to really reflect on, quiet the mind, really center myself, and have an intention for the day. Now, if folks who are listening or watching are like me, I sat on my cushion and I attempted to do that and my brain wouldn't stop. And I thought, I'm a failure. I can't believe this. I can't even, quiet my mind or meditate. And someone recommended to me that I use guided meditations, to which I said, isn't that cheating? But it ended up being a fantastic tool that I still use years later. I've been doing this for about 10 years now. And there's free podcasts. There's lots of apps now to use. But it's a really nice way to have someone kind of walk me through that in the morning and learn. So that's my time. And it's only 15 to 20 minutes. It's not a huge commitment. I notice when I don't do it, so I really make a commitment to do it. And it changes my state of mind. The second thing is perspective. And I had a wonderful conversation with someone end of last year, and she put this into words in a way that I hadn't heard before. What she said is, when she's talking to women about their careers and their development, and they're very interested in kind of how to work up the ladder and she happens to work in a large organization. She said, I sit back and I say to them, do you want to be successful or do you want to be significant? And I love that. That hit me in the heart, because I realized, that's about my impact in the greater world. It's not just about me being successful in my job. This is about me as a whole individual.
Right.
And a few years ago, I had started thinking about that, actually. You know, I'd been very focused on my family. I have 2 sons. They're 11 and 14 now. And, you know, focused on my career. I had some boxes I wanted to check in terms of experiences. And I took a step back and said, how am I contributing in my community? And I had an opportunity to join a couple nonprofit boards. So I sit on the board of Octane as well as 1OC. And so 1OC is a nonprofit that assists other nonprofits as well as companies with their community outreach. And it's been incredibly fulfilling for me to think about that, something totally different than my work and family, and something that I'm able to use my skills and to really give back in a still a professional setting, but a really meaningful way. And it's been really fulfilling for me. And then I also think about significance just in terms of taking time to mentor people at work or in my life, my personal life, friends and family, and, you know, slowing down, taking that half an hour or hour for a coffee to just sit down and ask good questions. So it's a couple different ways that I think about significance. The other thing I would share, especially for women, is a support system. So, you know, making sure that you've got your list of people to run down and call when you need support. That can be a coach. A coach is great because sometimes, you know, we want to vent and you don't want to vent to your boss, right? Or your peers. So it's great to be able to have that outlet. For me, where it came in handy was my son was having some issues in school. He has dyslexia and ADHD. He was diagnosed in 5th grade. And once we put those, let's say, terms on him, I freaked out. I thought, oh my goodness, how do we get here? What does this mean? I didn't really want to talk about it, but I realized I need a community. I need a support system around this. And what I found is, as I started to talk to more women, we tentatively kind of had this conversation, and suddenly I realized how much commonality I had with them and some of the other challenges that they had, as well as the strategies they were employing that were working for their kids that I was able to then learn. And I felt that community, and suddenly it didn't seem as hopeless. And the funny story is, I have had a friend for 20 years, and her daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, but she had so much shame about it, she didn't want to talk about it with me. And when we started talking about it, I said, how have we not had this conversation up to now? So it's just, you know, making sure that you're good, knowing that your support system is there for you. And it changed my frame of reference in a way that was really fundamental for me. And so that's why it was a great reminder. And I always share this with people, have that support system of women.
Well, it also, another thought there, because she was a support system. You've had her for in your life for 20 years, right? But you didn't know that piece about each other.
Yes.
So also being transparent in your communications,
yes,
and what you share with others. The more you, and I'm finding that as I age as well, is the more personal things I share about myself, the more I divulge, others can relate and connect better to me.
Yes.
And so I'm actually being mindful of that and starting to do more of that. But that's a perfect example, is that you know each other all these years, but you had no idea about that one aspect, you know, of each other.
It's a great point. And I think we thought of each other as friends, obviously.
Yeah.
But I didn't rely on her for support. I didn't want to be greedy. For some reason, and of course, you know, there's, when you're dealing with learning differences, there's, you know, challenges about how we all think about those. But you're right, when I was transparent and I opened up, here was another support that was even more impactful for me that I hadn't even realized. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's great advice.
Thank you.
So in summary, how does one get in touch with you if they want to connect or follow up or just have coffee or something?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'll always take a free chai.
A lot of mentors lining up for you, Jennifer. But
happy to do that. Yes, LinkedIn's probably the best way. Okay. So I'm Jennifer Luer, Leuer. It's linkedin.com/in/Jennifer Luer. So that's a great way. And there's a messaging app on there. So happy to connect with people and expand my support system and network.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So I think we're right at time, so that's perfect. So I just want to thank, this is Jennifer Luer, President of Experian Partner Solutions. So you've been a fantastic guest today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. So again, this is Dr. Sean Andrews with Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. Until next time, have a great time out there. And tune in next time. Take care.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show. focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
This is CBS News on the Hour.
I'm Pam Coulter. The first group of the 50 people charged in the college admissions fraud scheme were due to appear in court in Los Angeles at this hour. Parents, exam administrators, and college coaches are charged in the alleged scheme to buy spots in prestigious colleges like Yale and UCLA. FBI Special Agent in charge, Joseph Bonavolanta.
We believe all of them, parents, coaches, and facilitators, lied, cheated, and covered up their crimes at the expense of hardworking students and taxpayers everywhere.
CBS's Chip Reed has more on the scheme.
They would create fabricated athletic credentials that their child was a rower or their child was a tennis player. Maybe they played a little, but they weren't the kind of people who were going to get scholarships to get into big schools for this. They would then bribe the coaches at the schools. There are about 9 coaches at these different schools who were involved in this and got a lot of money out of this.
In a phone call with President Trump, the president of Boeing said they are confident about the safety of the 737 MAX, which was involved in 2 deadly plane crashes in the past 5 months. They're growing calls to temporarily ground the plane in the U.S. Consumer Reports aviation advisor Bill McGee.
We think that an immediate grounding of this aircraft until all questions are answered is necessary.
CBS's Chris Van Cleve.
Every expert I have talked to and every pilot I have talked to in the U.S. feels pretty confident that U.S. pilots know how to handle this aircraft. The question is, has that information gotten to everywhere that it should have, or were there extenuating circumstances? Certainly in Lion Air, there were other factors in this crash beyond that system.
He's still not saying if he's officially in the 2020 presidential race, but members of the International Association of Firefighters chanted "Run, Joe, run" during an appearance by former Vice President Joe Biden. He raised the issue of the 9/11 Victims' Compensation Fund.
Why are the hell we arguing about that still? Why is that even being argued? It must be permanently funded, period.
Breaking up really is hard to do, especially in Britain. Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal suffered a second defeat in Parliament. CBS's Vicky Barker.
This time, the margin of defeat improved from devastating to merely humiliating. The Brexit deal, Theresa May painstakingly hammered out with 27 EU leaders, lost by 149 votes, compared to 230 the last time, but still too resounding a defeat to salvage the deal in its current form.
The Dow fell 67 today, NASDAQ up 27. This is CBS News.
CBS News Radio, honored with the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for overall excellence. Original reporting, right here on CBS News Radio. These days, consuming the news is a full-time job.
This will be the first real
We've
taste
just
of
learned
winter
that police
weather.
are in the
U.S.
process
Senate
of
has just voted to move
75,000
forward.
homes.
But with CBS News Radio's award-winning coverage, you'll never miss a story.
There is a lot to get to tonight, but we're going to begin here with some breaking news.
Every hour of every day, CBS News correspondents are on your radio and online, delivering comprehensive and original reporting across the country and across the world.
I'm Stephen Portnoy in Singapore.
This is Adrienne Bard in Mexico City.
This is Steve Futterman in Paradise, California.
Go beyond the headlines with CBS News Radio podcasts like CBS This Morning, The Takeout with Major Garrett, and Face the Nation to listen to interviews with some of the biggest names in politics.
Is this a legislative agenda or a platform for a presidential run for you?
Comprehensive coverage, original reporting from CBS News Radio, on the radio and online at cbsnewsradio.com.
A consulting firm has grim news about retail stores. CBS's Jason Brooks.
Foresight Research reports that more than 4,800 store closings have already been announced, covering a wide range of popular brands, including Gap, Victoria's Secret, Abercrombie & Fitch, Kohl's, and Tesla. That's well on pace to top the record set in 2017 at more than 8,100 closings, and a big jump from the more than 5,500 closings last year. Foresight says mall owners are trying to find non-retailers or unique concepts to replace the stores, as new retail openings are nowhere close to keeping up with the closings.
People who went to see Captain Marvel at a New Jersey theater got to see star Brie Larson, not just on the big screen, but in person. She showed up at a theater in Clifton wearing a Captain Marvel sweatsuit. No one noticed right away, but after people caught on, the internet was flooded with pictures of her, even serving popcorn at the concession stand. Pam Coulter, CBS News.
This is VOA News. I'm Joe Palca. A group of protesters outside of British Parliament earlier today with what proved to be a prescient protest. Indeed, for the second time, British Parliament has voted down Prime Minister Theresa May's latest effort to set the terms of Britain's Brexit deal to split from the European Union on March 29th. British Prime Minister Theresa May.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I profoundly regret the decision that this House has taken tonight. I continue to believe that by far the best outcome is that the United Kingdom leaves the European Union in an orderly fashion with a deal. And that the deal we've negotiated